Venus and star blessings. Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Let's talk about the new moon in Scorpio, which is just a couple of days away. And boy, what a Scorpio new moon it is. It's really highlighted actually by Pluto and Mars, which are the rulers to Scorpio. Now, I just did a video a few days ago on a general overview of a Scorpio season. And in that video, I spoke quite a bit about Mars Pluto, the opposition between them, because that opposition is going to be in play till April next year. So we've got quite a long passage of this Mars Pluto opposition. I will probably not talk about it as much today. So if you want to hear more about that, I suggest you watch the video I uploaded a few days ago. But nevertheless, it is important to recognize that this new moon is heavily impacted by this Mars-Pluto opposition. And there are also quite a few goddesses, asteroid goddesses, all lining up with the South Node. And these divinities, these goddesses, they all have not all, most of them, except one, actually, well, except two. So a couple of them have a real Scorpio archetypal expression, if you like. And the other two have different archetypal meanings. And I'll show you what they are so we can just kind of look at them one by one. But yeah, look, this Scorpio new moon is obviously going to be quite an important cycle, especially with what's happening in the USA, with the upcoming elections and it's pretty intense and pretty sort of chaotic, really, what's happening in the USA. We know they're having the Pluto return. We know the elections are coming up, and I'm not going to get political and speak about the two candidates and what my opinion is on either of those people. Because frankly, if I'm going to be honest, I don't really follow any politician, and I don't particularly vouch for any of them. I think that they all sleep in the same bed, more or less. That's just my position. But I do think the USA is facing some really critical times. And of course, we have the matters in the Middle East, which are just, exploding second by second by second. It's a year later, and, there's still huge devastation and chaos going on. And I think this Mars-Pluto opposition will certainly intensify the matters there as well. There are a lot of good things happening in terms of support and aid. Like, for example, I read this morning that the French, what do they call them there? Well, we call him Prime Minister here, the leader of the country, just raised $200 million for Palestine in terms of aid and support and things like that. So, there are a lot of good things happening, but unfortunately, as per usual, mainstream media just does not show you those things. Mainstream media just simply paints a narrative that they wish the mainstream collective to follow, with their heads down, buried in the sand. That's just a fact. It's not even my personal opinion. Very interesting. I came across a video on YouTube yesterday, and I've posted it on my Facebook. Anyway, it's just a guy who he's quite amazing, actually. He's got incredible wisdom about holistic health, and his whole page is about holistic health. And he's not shy or afraid to speak up on on the pharmaceutical companies and just all the toxicity that they put in our foods and so on and so forth. Anyway, what he did was he asked AI, chat GPT, whatever it's called, to explain to him in a paragraph how do we deal with and how do we exit the matrix, right? He said something like that. And it was quite extraordinary what AI actually responded back to him with. And I'll summarize, but essentially, this is AI. So this is an intelligent, technological force, if you like, that comes back with a truth, which was quite mind-boggling. And the response was quite a few things, but in a nutshell, the suggestion was there's we absolutely do need to exit the matrix, as it were. And the way we do that is by, healthy living, healthy eating, question all the narratives that are put out there, from mainstream media and so forth. And, just things like that, right? And it also said, having honesty and integrity and developing loving, honest, open relationships, and just being aware of the lies, and it literally said all this stuff. It was quite mind-blowing, actually. And of course, with Scorpio season, and here we have a Scorpio new moon, there's always the potential, not only the potential, but it often happens that so much gets revealed and exposed because you've got these still waters run deep, really deep layers in the Scorpio field, if you like. And so what happens during this time is that energy gets woken up, if you like, right? So what actually gets woken up? Well, what gets woken up is what's hidden in the underworld, right? That is, when we say the underworld, that can be taken in a lot of different ways. It represents our own unconscious. It represents part of the collective unconscious, if you like, although the collective unconscious is more 12th house Pisces, but Scorpio too, being a water sign, which penetrates beyond, the surface level of things, goes in and sort of churns everything and brings it up to the surface for us to see. The surface level where everything is contained is where Libra kind of sits, right? It's the mirror of what appears on the surface level. And Scorpio just dives through, smashes through, and stirs all those waters and brings it all up for us to see, right? It's often very uncomfortable, especially when people are in denial or living a reality that is in denial of a deeper truth, let's say, because everyone's truth is different. Like Krishnamurti said, truth is a pathless land, right? And there are different things about truth as well. There is our own personal truth. There is a deeper collective truth. There is divine truth, universal truth, natural law truth. So there's different aspects of truth. But ultimately, if we are living in a bubble and in denial of the truth of what's actually happening beyond the fabricated narratives, well, when Scorpio comes through, especially with a new moon, and things just get blown up and everything is sort of seen, as it were, that can be very uncomfortable for people because, the fact is that most people like to live in their own little narrative or world, and don't like to have to deal with or have to see or have to contend with or have to contemplate or compromise or recognize, things that are uncomfortable, right? Things that are out of our control, as it were, So I think this is what, Scorpio always brings up for all of us. Let me just share my screen and bring up the chart for the Scorpio new moon, which is this one here. So never mind where everything is located. As always, just locate the Scorpio new moon in your own birth chart. So where is Scorpio in your own birth chart? Which house is it in? The degrees is 9 degrees of Scorpio. That's where the new moon is, and 35 minutes. Okay, so let me just move that a little bit. So if you look at the degrees of the new moon and you look at Mars and you look at Pluto, which are exactly opposite each other here, just minutes apart, both at anaretic degrees, we know that Pluto is going to move into Aquarius in November to never return to Capricorn again. And it's not a coincidence that USA is having their Pluto return and the elections are coming up in the month where Pluto actually changes signs for good, as it were. that is to never return to Capricorn, and commits to Aquarius for the next 20 years. So I think perhaps whatever the outcome may be in USA, I don't think either, personally speaking, I don't think either choices are really that great, actually. I'm hoping that as time moves forward, regardless of whatever happens in these elections, that the Pluto in Aquarius will ultimately bring forth, from a political perspective, hopefully, anyway, not only just for America, but in fact for the entire world, where it's needed, especially more than other places, leaders who are actually leading for the people, right? Pluto is, the most powerful force. And Pluto in Aquarius at the most, at the most authentic level, at the highest vibrationary level, would be to lead with power, right, for the people, Aquarius. So regardless of what happens in November, and this may be naive of me to say this, but it's just the sense that I get, regardless of what happens, we are looking at Pluto being in Aquarius for the next 20 years. So whatever outcome happens in November, it's not for infinity. It's not, permanent, as nothing is. So I think we're going to see a lot of the dark aspects of Pluto in Aquarius, especially in the first few years, because that's what always happens. And then things will, somewhat settle down. But when Pluto enters a sign, it always exposes the hidden components of whatever that archetype represents. And so in this case, we're talking about groups, right? That can be a group of 5 people, or that can be a group of 10,000 people. It's not defined or measured by the amount of people. That is what defines a group, right? There are small groups, there are large groups. So what's going to happen is every group, as it were, in the world will be seen for what it truly is, what it truly represents, what it truly stands for, and what it's truly hiding. So there's a lot for us to, there's a lot that we're going to see that we haven't seen before, particularly because of the level that we're at in life at the moment, relative to Pluto being in Aquarius 248 years ago. Historically, there were, different things going on the planet then. It was different times, right? So we are at a completely different futuristic sort of trajectory at the moment, that they weren't 248 years ago. It's just a fact. So we're going to see, so much more, especially with this AI coming in. There's even with that, there's going to be some great things, and there's going to be some really dark things, because Pluto brings up what's hidden and what's in the darkness, right? So this Scorpio new moon is beginning, this new lunation cycle, right? So for the next month, I think we're going to see a lot more being revealed to us, right? In terms of the collective things that are going on. And the Mars-Pluto opposition is actually squaring this new moon. It's an out of sign square, but it is incredibly close. And even though it's out of sign, I think what really amplifies it even more is the fact that Pluto and Mars are both at the anaretic degree. So there's something really significant in terms of power and conflict, and unfortunately, those more malefic aspects of Mars that need to be completed, and they will. So new moons always represent a new beginning, right? And generally, a new moon, in this case, it's not a solar eclipse; it's a regular new moon. And solar eclipses hold a different power, different vibration, and they're connected to a family and so on and so forth. In this case, we just have a new moon, but a new moon cycle is extremely important because the moon acts very much like a timer as well, you know, as it unfolds, right, over as the sun and moon move away from each other, they have this relationship, the sol-lunar relationship, right, which are the aspects between the sun and the moon. And the new moon is the starting point, right? So we can't see what's going to happen at the new moon. The whole point of a new moon is for things to be seeds to be planted, you know, things to be intended. Um, uh, you know, new moon rituals, intentions, and so on and so forth, right? And it is important, you know, to reflect and give thought to what you are starting at this time, because the new moon represents a new start, right? It's an Aries energy, basically. It's a new moon, right? So it's a new start to something, but whatever it is that's going to begin, because of the square between the opposition of Mars and Pluto, there is something quite significant also ending at the same time. And that's not contradictory, because with every new beginning, right, there's an ending has taken place and a new beginning happens, and then another ending will happen. They just work side by side, really. Um, so Scorpio new moon can be from, now let's go into a more personal sort of landscape, if you like. From our own personal perspective, this is an incredibly powerful Scorpio new moon because it's happening again while Pluto is transitioning, right? Um, Preparing to leave Capricorn for good. It's opposite Mars. Mars and Pluto are the rulers to the new moon in Scorpio. So that Scorpio new moon has an amplified, you know, scorpionic power to it, unlike previous Scorpio new moons, I think, particularly because Mars and Pluto are at the 29th degree, right? 29th degree, from an evolutionary perspective, speaks to something quite significant, ending, completing, finishing, right? We are ending something really primary, right? There's something, you know, it's a window that we won't go back to this, you see. There's no going back, right? And so you can't sort of think, oh, you know, I'll have another opportunity. You won't. We won't, because Pluto will not be at this position again in our lifetime, ever. So when you think about that, it's like a last sort of chance, if you like, last opportunity to really finish something very significant. And what is that thing that might be finishing? Well, it's going to look different, you know, for every single person. We can only just make some generic comments, if you like, in terms of the details, but really it comes down to where these planets are in your birth chart. You know, so if they're running across houses 1 and 7, for instance, Pluto and Mars, then clearly it's got to do with your personal power, right? And relationships, and aligning your soul with your personal power in your relationships. And that alignment at the healthiest level is about being empowered in your relationships and also allowing the other person to be empowered in the relationship versus being combative, competitive, and trying to challenge the other person in a way where you just want to overpower them, right? Because that's Mars, okay? Mars doesn't want to lose ever. Mars is not we are one, we will win together. Mars is move out of my fucking way, I'm winning this game. That's the nature of Mars. But because it is opposite Pluto, there is an opportunity there for a higher integration, a higher level of integration, which of course means that we have to bring some consciousness and awareness and objectivity to the picture. Or this, as I said in my previous video, this is a very explosive energy, and we will see a lot of explosive things happening on the earth, for sure. The other thing is that we could say that Uranus is opposite this new moon, okay? And therefore, it's a bit of a stretch to say it's squaring Mars and Pluto out of sign. That's a bit of a stretch. But I would certainly say that it is opposite this new moon as well. So I think we're going to see, the most typical things that Uranus brings up, which is unexpected, sudden, unusual events, right? That just come out of the blue, that just did not expect that. Now, whether that's on an individual level or collectively or in certain aspects of the earth, that remains to be seen. But with Uranus, there's always a shock factor, hence, it brings up trauma. Excuse me. So with Uranus, yeah, these are really intense energies, Mars, Pluto, and Uranus. Those three planets, they're not they're not a walk in the park. They're not smooth sailing. They bring up really heavy type of material from our own unconscious, from our own personal desires, Mars. And Uranus always brings in shocks and the unexpected. Let me just okay, sorry, I just have a bit of a foggy throat. So I guess with Uranus, really, it's about I'm just trying to think of how to explain it, how it would be relatable, on an individual level. It's always hard to make remarks that would resonate with every individual because once again, everything just depends on your own birth chart, your own path and the choices that you make as well. But if we just put that aside for a moment, Uranus will always bring up something that we were not expecting. Now, that can be a good thing sometimes, and sometimes it can be a very difficult thing. The difficulty often will present when we are actually resisting something. Just give me a second. I need to pause. Okay, sorry about that. I just had to clear my throat. Okay, Uranus. Given that this is a new moon, which means the energy of whatever this new moon will bring up will unfold over a 4-week period, right? As it always is with a new moon. So we can expect the unexpected, to come up at any given moment, over the next 4 weeks. So when because Uranus rules what is unexpected and what's unpredictable, you can't really predict, okay, what's going to show up with Uranus. But what we can know is that there is an opportunity, let's say, for some type of breakthrough. Uranus rules breakthroughs, but there is also potential there for sudden shocks to, arise for us. So it depends on our personal circumstances. But I suppose at a more positive, simple kind of level, if you like, it would be about integrating, because Uranus is authenticity, right? It speaks to the ability to be yourself, right? To walk your own path, okay? And with Uranus here in the picture, there is a potential opening for us to integrate, at a really deep soul level, Scorpio, aspects of our life journey that we wish to walk in a more authentic way. It's about having I suppose you could say the courage, right? To be yourself, to be totally authentic, and never underestimate the power of that, because most people don't live in a way where they are um, able to feel authentic and be themselves, right? Everyone wears a mask, right? We all know that, right? People hide things about themselves and so on and so forth, right? And I guess with the Uranus energy here, there is an opportunity for us to just um, to make a decision, to walk in a more authentic path that feels more at one with us. I mean, different things happen for different reasons at different times, right? And sometimes it's unavoidable. Certain choices that we've made, we've kind of got to see them through to a certain extent. And I'm thinking, for example, when I moved to the West, right? And I realized as soon as I got there, this is just so not for me. And I knew that I had to get out of there, but it was not an easy thing to move again, right? For so many reasons, the cost of it, the lack of properties available. There was just so many I had so many obstacles, but I knew that I had to face all these obstacles, and I knew that I had to leave, right? And I knew that I had to do that more than anything so that I can feel more authentic in my own space, right? In my living space, which is where I do these videos from, right? I don't sit out in the park or wherever to do these things. I do them from home. And so when I'm speaking astrology or looking at a chart or whatever, my space has to feel congruent. I have to feel aligned with it, right? I'm just using that as a way of example relative to Uranus, speaking to being authentic, right? And also breakthroughs. Because to tell you the truth, the Uranus Jupiter conjunction that occurred in Taurus earlier this year happened in my fourth house. Okay. And I just had this really strong intuition and really strong sense that Uranus Jupiter conjunction was going to bring an opportunity to me that was going to be unexpected. Um, I wouldn't have been able to time it, and it would have been a breakthrough for me relative to my living situation. And that's exactly what happened. So to some extent, you can predict, with Uranus in terms of whatever house it's in, right? You can gauge the context of what to be open and receptive to, right? Um, so new moon in Scorpio. Scorpio reflects the soul. It reflects our desires. It reflects transformation. It reflects, dying to the old, giving birth to new things. It reflects going deeper into aspects of yourself that are more hidden. It also reflects things that about ourselves where we are our personal limitations, and also the ability to recognize those and actually work with where your greater strengths are, for instance, because everyone's got personal limitations. And if anybody says that they don't, then they've got their heads right up where the sun don't shine. Because there is no one on this earth that doesn't have some kind of personal limitation. Everyone's got Scorpio in their chart, so everyone has personal limitations. And it's not about focusing necessarily on that, but rather being aware of it, right? And working on what you can work with. Where are your strengths? How you can develop those more, for instance. Also, Scorpio reflects our deep personal desires, right? This is a very passionate new moon energy, extremely passionate, especially with this rulers Mars and Pluto being square it, right? So there's a really deep, intense month ahead, right? With it can be, really passionate. There can be a lot of just a lot of experiences with our own personal passions and desires. It may be that you haven't been with a partner for a while, haven't been dating, haven't been feeling very passionate. You lost touch with what you feel passionate about in your life. Those things are important. I mean, perhaps I'm an Aries, and perhaps that's why I resonate with that a lot. But if you're an Aries Scorpio and you have strong Mars Pluto, you'd be quite an intense, passionate sort of person, right? So everyone's got passion in them in some kind of way. Some people just express it a lot more, right? But let's just say, whoever it is have been sort of feeling, sort of flat, right? And things have just been kind of um, plateauing, just not really moving anywhere, not feeling sort of energized and motivated about what you feel passionate about in life and so forth. Well, this is a pretty powerful month to reignite those sorts of passions, right? To reconnect with them and feel them, in your body. And speaking of feeling, because of course Scorpio is a feeling sign, it's a water sign. The other thing about this particular new moon, which I'll go to now, is we've got Lilith in Libra, the South Node in Libra, Vesta in Libra, Juno at the 29th degree of Libra, and the goddess Hecate is also here in Libra as well. I think she's very close to Lilith, actually. And that's what I was referring to when I spoke about at the beginning when I said there's a few Scorpionic goddesses and then there's a few other ones. Even Pandora, the goddess Pandora, she's in this picture as well because she's actually at 8 degrees of Leo. So she's sitting just over here in this chart, for example. So she's squaring the new moon. And what's Pandora all about? It's, the old classic saying, careful you don't open Pandora's box. So we've got a Pandora energy influence to this new moon. No doubt there's going to be some things that come out of that box that are going to shock certain people because Uranus is there as well. Going back to these Libran divinities over here, Lilith, Hecate, goddess of magic, Lilith, goddess of being feeling, how can I put it? Feeling in touch enough with your raw, real, wild self, right? To live that, to embody that, to express that, to be that, and to allow others to see it because she's in Libra and Libra is the mirror. So it's what we show to others or what we hide from others. In Libra, there's a very, very important message here with Lilith showing us the path of how to be more real and more raw and seen, in our relationships. Now, this can be in all our relationships. It's not just about personal, intimate relationships. It can be about any relationship we have, but certainly with more close type of relationships, I would say probably be more important on that level. Because, I'm sure that most of you would agree with this. Do you feel or do you not think that you would be more content, happier within yourself if you can be totally who you are in your relationship and be seen and be accepted, right? Because most of us are always seeking for this approval, which is Libra, always seeking approval, right? And not wanting to upset and rock the boat and so on and so forth. But, put Lilith in Libra, she's going to rock that boat because she's not committed to the status quo. She's committed to authenticity and freedom, autonomy. And so in Libra here, with Juno at the last degree of Libra, and Juno, of course, is the goddess of marriage, partnership, contractual agreements, committed relationships. So there's a lot of focus here, again, on relationships in this new moon cycle. Although these goddesses are adjacent to the new moon, like the next sign or the sign before, they're still very important because they're part of this lunation cycle. They're in the sky at the same time, happening right next to the new moon. So there's something very important for us here to also consider relative to our own relationships and how we allow others to see us and how we see others as well. Just want to read this to you, actually. I just really like this particular statement. So this is by Tom Jacobs. He says, when I talk about the wild in relation to Lilith, I want you to think of instinct. I define instinct as the chemical, visceral knowing that our bodies offer us all the time. Instinct is a baseline facet of Lilith energy, and it underlies everything we can say about her and her archetype as we experience it. So I think, that the more in touch we are with Lilith, right, we tune into that energy from our own physical body, right? And think about it. Lilith is the black moon, the black moon. And the moon, the normal moon, as it were, this new moon here, that the moon actually also is a container for us, for our physical body. That's why the moon corresponds to women's cycles. The moon corresponds to lots of other rhythms and cycles, regardless of gender, sleep and eating. When you're hungry, when you're tired, that's the moon telling you that. It's the moon saying, hey, I'm tired, I'm starving, whatever. So the moon regulates all these rhythms in our body, right? And you think about Black Moon Lilith, she goes into a much deeper level of this physical body. And if we are listening and we are connected to it, we will receive the insight and the wisdom and the messages just through how our body is responding and feeling in relationship to anyone or anything. So it's about being able to really be in touch with the visceral feelings and what your body is saying to you at any given moment. This is an important point because in this day and age, with the level of distraction and the level of technology, which, yes, it has its fantastic aspects about it, and it also has its very extreme downsides to it, hence the word distraction. We are distracted by everything, right? Everything distracts us to not look within. Everything is always trying to get our attention out there, right? And so we eat more, we drink more, we've got noise around us all the time. These are all distractions that move us further and further away from listening to our own natural self, Lilith, our own instinctual drive and instinctual knowing. When you've got an instinct and a hunch on something, I'm sure every single one of you have had a hunch or a strong instinct about something, and you've said to yourself, fuck, I should have listened to that deep instinct that I had because I was just 100% right. Well, that's Lilith. She really, she taps us into those deep, raw, instinctual knowings and insights. So Lilith in Libra, therefore, here with all these other goddesses and Hecate as well, and also with Hecate, what was it that I wanted to mention? She also, is represented by the night, the moon, magic, witchcraft. She's very, 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 very popular in the world of witchcraft, right? She's one of the main divinities that witches tend to really feel drawn to. Of course, witchcraft, which that's a whole other subject and level, but witchcraft is it's not just potions and spells from the point of view of that how can I put it? We create spells and we engage in witchcraft on a daily basis, just with our own thoughts and desires and what we project and what we wish for, and all and the like, all of that. We're not told how powerful we are. We're told the opposite from this reality, this conventional, mainstream, patriarchal reality. We're told the opposite. Because how else are you going to control a population of 8 billion people if you tell them all that, oh, by the way, you're actually a divine, sovereign, free, eternal being? You've got the power to create and live the life that you wish. Yes, there are some limitations, and you will figure out what they are because they are individual for all of us. But in terms of the general scheme, you're not confined and choked and locked in by all these misleading, misguiding systems. In fact, you are, this sovereign being. Who the fuck tells you that in this life? Do they tell you that at school? No. Do they tell you that at university? No. Do they tell you that when you're employed for a company? No. No one tells you that. You've got to figure it out yourself. But it is a truth. So that, that involves things like being in touch with your own magic, the magic within you, the magic of consciousness, of the divine source creation, the magic that exists in your DNA, in your blood, in your body, the magic that is you. So, Hecate, I sort of see her in those components as well. And she obviously reflects a lot of other things. By the way, she was the one that helped Ceres find Persephone when Persephone was abducted into the underworld. So Hecate, had this torch and these gadgets and things, right? And some dog and things like that. And she was able to go into territories and fields that not many other divinities could, right? So she helped Ceres actually find Persephone. And Hecate actually in Greek, let me just find it. Her name in Greek actually means worker from afar. Worker from afar. Think about that, because you will find your own connection to that and your own meaning, maybe or maybe not. For me, when I read that, what I feel it speaks to is because she enters, fields and goes into areas that are unseen, in the dark, hidden underworld, magic things within us, in other words. That's why her name means the worker from afar, right? Anyway, she is here with Lilith. So this is all happening during, in the portal of Halloween and so forth, right? Which is again a very Scorpio field and celebrations, all the different things that Halloween represents and so forth. So there's a lot of power here from a feminine magic point, deep feminine magic going on here. And, we can use this in a very holistic and healthy and conscious way, to work on things that are important for us, right? To get more in touch with those aspects of ourselves that speak to magic. And with Lilith, again, it's really about are you allowing yourself to be seen? And are you allowing the other to be seen by you? And in that seeing, in that visceral, authentic, honest, raw expression of who you are, how is that translating in your relationships? This is the opportunity with Lilith in Libra to show you whether you are actually really being that real, raw, true self, if you like, or if you're not. And if you're not, then typically what happens is we are projecting that onto the other. So often when we project something that we've suppressed or denied within ourselves, we'll see the shadow side of that, right? So we might see, in certain relationships, the shadow, darker sides of Lilith, which can come up through judgment, abuse. There can be a lot of not so very nice things that come out of the shadow side of Lilith, right? So whatever we are seeing, then it is an opportunity to question back to ourselves, well, what is it that I'm not aware of or in touch with within myself that I am seeing it so strongly in the other person? Why have I invited that in to see that? What do I need to understand about that? We don't see anything in anybody if we are not, I'm talking particularly when you have, well, a relationship, number one, and number two, when we have a really heightened reaction, right, to something or someone. There's something about that we need to discover within ourselves. And that's what Lilith in Libra really helps us do, actually. So all this energy is part and parcel of this new moon in Scorpio. And, as I've said before, Scorpio is a scorpion, the snake, the eagle, and the phoenix. And all those four layers have very different manifestations of the archetype of Scorpio. And the scorpion is actually at the lowest. If we're going to go by scale, I think it's Scorpio that's at the lowest. Scorpio, the snake. No, Scorpio, the scorpion. Because the scorpion is the one that's going to seek revenge, and that will sting you if you're trying to hurt it or overpower it or whatever it is. The phoenix doesn't do that. The phoenix pretty much, dies and is reborn, right? And just, rises up from the ashes and off it goes. Into the land of the golden land, if you like. The scorpion lives in that deeper underworld. So there's different, levels of Scorpio that we can all experience as well. It's very, very, very complicated because Scorpio is one of the most complex signs in the zodiac. There's no two ways about that. So I think we're looking at a pretty intense month. And depending on, our own personal circumstances, obviously, then that will reflect how this new moon cycle unfolds for us. But one thing I do really like is that Venus is in Sagittarius, and here she is approaching a conjunction to Pallas Athena. And this kind of, brings in a bit of a lighter tone, if you like, because everything else is really heavy. But, this the intensity and passion and level of will, right, that is so powerful in this new moon cycle might just be, the very thing that you need, right, to really face something and work on something that you've really had trouble with in the past. For instance, this could be, the perfect opportunity to have a breakthrough with Uranus there. And Venus in Sag with Pallas Athena is all about the love of wisdom. This is such a beautiful energy, which has been building for the last couple of days. So it's there for a few days. This is a perfect energy for studying, learning, could be traveling as well, of course, because it is Sagittarius, but definitely embodying and connecting with deeper wisdom and deeper truths. Now, that could be just buying a particular book that you've had on the back of your mind for a while, and you've just, it's something that would inspire you, that would really bring, richness to your soul, actually, and just to your connection and understanding of the different aspects of wisdom. But it's an enjoyable thing, because Venus is what we enjoy, right? It's what makes us happy, what makes us feel good. So with Venus in Sag conjunct Pallas Athena, I think that's just a really great time. Anything to do with wisdom, that could be doing a particular podcast, that could be studying, it could be doing a YouTube video, whatever it is, just something that is really enjoyable and uplifting and inspires you to, to see the bigger sky, to see the horizon, right? Because we can get very blindsided or have the blinkers on, and we can just be so stuck in a particular space because of certain circumstances that are going on, which is, validated. But there is always something bigger than what we actually see just with our physical eyes. And Venus in Sag with Pallas Athena inspires that breadth of vision, that grand vision to see and feel for something more hopeful. So I love that energy there. I think that's beautiful. Mercury has just gone past the opposition to Uranus there. But Mercury-Uranus aspects, I love a Mercury-Uranus aspect. That's the mind of a genius, the mind of an astrologer. That's the mind of the conscious field. That's just a beautiful energy to receive more insights again, I remember when I had transiting Uranus conjunct my Mercury quite a few years ago. My brain and my mind was just buzzing. I can't tell you how many books I read at that time. I just could not put material down. I was reading, listening to this, reading that. It was all on astrology too, by the way, all of it. That went on for ages. And so whilst that transit was for 18 months or so, and this is a transit for just a couple of days, it still can be a really deeply inspiring time, for us mentally, and with Mercury being in Scorpio, it's probing into something deeply complex as well. So that's really love that aspect, actually. And Venus is approaching an opposition to Jupiter, which is great because they are the two benefics. And there is a reception going on because Venus is in Jupiter's sign. So let's just see when that is exact, because it's within orb now, most certainly, and you can definitely start to think about that energy from now. But so it's more or less there. Okay, so what's the date of that? Yeah, so day after the new moon, pretty much. Venus, Jupiter, just to put it very simply, that's a great night out, a great day out, where you can just have so much enjoyment and so much fun. That can be a great day in relationships, in finances, in things that you really love and enjoy. It's just a day where you have the two benefics. Yes, they're opposite each other, but that doesn't matter. just enjoying and soaking up, the energy of the two benefics. The benefics generally bring no harm, generally, okay? And you have them aspecting each other. So yeah, it's just a beautiful energy to enjoy something that could be going to an event, that could be whatever. It could be you in your garden at home, listening to music, whatever it is. See, Jupiter inspires happiness and joy. Venus is happiness, Jupiter is joy. So bring the two of them together. We can be, overwhelmed with joy and happiness, even if it's just for a few hours or a day. That's still something to be appreciative of. Of course, Venus rules what we appreciate, right? So that can just be a real feel-good day, and that might not sound like much, but I tell you what, if someone's having a really shit week or a shit month or whatever it is, difficult time, that could just be, the thing that raises the vibration, lifts you up a bit, right? To snap out of the lull, the energy that's been sort of making you feel down. Who doesn't want to feel good? Who doesn't want to feel happy? So it's little moments like this that can open that door, that open that energy, that, inspire it within us. So don't underestimate that Venus-Jupiter opposition. They're just a few thoughts on a very basic level. But again, you need to look at where they are in your birth chart, of course. Just saying, was there anything else there? Yeah, no, I think I'll leave it there for today. So, this Scorpio new moon is full of magic, feminine magic power. Harness the energy, just get in touch with it within yourself, to feel the magic inside you and, bring it up and bring it through and live it. And yeah, just as the old classic saying goes with Scorpio, just let go of whatever is trying to leave your life, and allow the phoenix to rise and be reborn. See you guys very, very soon with much more. If you're interested in any of my courses, I've got 2 complete courses available, and I'm starting my 3rd course in a few weeks' time, which is going to be more or less on fairly advanced level of astrology. It's going to be the most difficult course to create because there's a lot of work that needs to go in that. But it's, yeah, if you're at that level where you want to go more advanced with chart interpretation, aspects, phases, nodes, there's going to be all that sort of stuff is going to be in that next course. So reach out if you're interested in that and if you wish to have a reading with me. And happy new moon. May you see the phoenix rise where it needs to for you. Much love.